to the Empowering Women podcast. Together, we will hear from ambitious and inspiring career women as they share their stories of success and overcoming career challenges. And now, your host, Mel the Engineer.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Mel the Engineer, and you're listening to a bonus episode in Season 1 of the Empowering Women podcast. This episode is different because it's not going to be an interview. This is going to be a group conversation between me and the Empowering Women in Industry conference organizers. So those women I'm speaking to today are Sienna Detloff, Rebecca Mechtensheimer, and Bethany Womack. These are the women working behind the scenes on empowering brands, and they're really the hands that have brought together the upcoming Empowering Women in Industry conference, happening in just a few weeks in Chicago. So I hope you'll consider joining us there. You can find details at empoweringwomeninindustry.com. So take a listen to Sienna, Rebecca, and Bethany, and I'll look forward to joining you again soon. Welcome, ladies, to the Empowering Women podcast. We've got a whole lineup of special women with us today. So I would like to start with an introduction from Sienna. Sienna, could you introduce yourself and tell us about your role with the Empowering Women in Industry organization?
Thank you so much, Elle, for having us on today. It's really great to be talking with you and to have Bethany Womack and Rebecca Mechtensheimer also on this awesome interview. I am the content director and editor for Empowering Pumps and Equipment, which is just one segment of the overall company, which is Empowering Brands. And so the major segment within Empowering Brands that we're talking about today is Empowering Women in Industry. And it's such an exciting effort and program and initiative. And I'm so lucky to have this awesome team here on the call with us. So Rebecca Mechtensheimer, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself here too.
Hello. You can call me Rebecca or Becca. Everybody calls me something different, but I respond to both. I am the sales and marketing manager for Empowering Pumps and Equipment, and then also work with Empowering Brands as a whole and Empowering Women. Basically, my job with the company is to help people with their marketing efforts digitally and make sure that they're successful. One of my passions would be to help others, which is why I'm really excited to be involved with Empowering Women in Industry and to help others in our community. We also have Bethany Womack on the line, and I will let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Becca. My name's Bethany Womack. I'm the brand development manager for Empowering Brands. As far as Empowering Women, the event goes, I am in charge of developing the brand, basically the visual brand for the event. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this event and seeing everything come together and seeing so many amazing women just celebrating at this event. So Mel, thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be here.
And I think this is Sienna here. I want to say that, Bethany being a brand manager and Becca, our whole team, we're working together really. When we talk about a brand, we're talking more than just visuals. We're talking about a whole experience. And so really the experience that we want to create for this event is one where women working in industry, which, are traditionally male-dominated fields, are able to come together and talk to one another and learn from one another. So because my role in the conference has been one of more focused on content and making sure that the sessions are engaging and that we have presenters who are really working to share their knowledge and experience with the people who are attending, that is what I'm so passionate about, is making sure that personal experience. It's for us, it's more than our brand. It's about connecting and empowering people. And Empowering Brands as a whole is always working to empower people, empower companies, and empower teams. So I'm really looking forward to that, making those connections at the conference that day, and meeting the presenters. I'm really excited about meeting all these awesome ladies who've agreed to come and teach us. So what are you excited about, Rebecca?
Thank you, Sienna. What I'm most excited about is, like you said, to connect with the people that are going to be at the event. Building this community online that we've been doing for over a year now avidly has just been awesome to see and see it grow, and to be able to actually meet these women in person, and to actually, continue to empower each other and grow this community offline is just really exciting. And I can't wait to meet the women at this conference and to be able to continue to grow my own strengths and also grow with them.
Yeah, and when we come together, I think that's an interesting thing about, when we consider attending conferences, because a lot of the time what comes to our mind is, oh my goodness, I have to request the time off from work. I have to come up with the money to travel. And so a lot of those things sometimes keep us from making that effort to going. But then once we're there and we meet those people and we have those experiences where there are light bulb moments and we have, oh my gosh, moments, that impact us in personal ways and give us ideas for things that we can do or try in our professional lives. I think that, putting aside sort of those money issues or time issues is really important, when you're thinking about the conference. And so, I hope that people, as they listen to the messaging, we're sharing messaging through our social channels, and we're featuring all the awesome ladies that are being nominated for the awards. I'm hoping that they're seeing sort of past that. I want them to see the opportunities there for engaging with this community of women, not just in person, but also online. As we have our LinkedIn group. And I just think having this resource of women to go to and talk with is really critical in this day and age.
I've got a few open-ended questions that I'd like to pose for whoever on the call feels like answering them. Would anybody like to share their thoughts on a little more detail on why it's important to create space for women professionals, such as the Empowering Women in Industry conference?
I can go first. This is Bethany. I think it's really important to have this conference because historically, especially in the industries we're looking in, like these industries have been very male dominated. And where you see the largest pay gap is where you also see like the largest disparity in the percentage of people that hold that job. So it's really important that, especially in these industries, that we're looking at, engineers, trade, women in trades and things like that, that we do everything we can to support women to help make the industry itself more inclusive for women. And I really think, we can't rely on laws to do that. We can't rely on other people to do that. As women, we have to be able to say, I'm going to take this charge and I'm going to try to make a change. And the first step that I can do in that, me personally, is by helping to organize this conference. And I'm so excited, and I think at the conference, we'll see women talking about different ways they can do that and help each other and support each other in doing that.
Bethany, I love that point for reminding us, again, another major reason is to affect change. And I think sometimes that concept of making change happen can feel so daunting, especially if you're one person in an organization trying to affect change. So going, having an opportunity to connect with people and learn about ways that they have affected change or approaches they've taken, things that they can learn that they can actually use hands on. That's so critical because I think the hardest part is having that first place of where to start. Sometimes just knowing where to start is the hardest part. So I think that's excellent that, if you know that there's a change that needs to happen within your organization, where do you start? And then having a forum where you can talk with others about their experiences can be one of the most inspiring ways to do that. So that's great that you brought that up.
One example that really drove this point home for me and why I'm so passionate about this, early 2018, I was reading this article on 538's website. They do a lot of analysis and on surveys. Anyway, and they were talking about the pay gap in America. And one example they gave of what industries can do is they were talking about the pharmaceutical industry, the pharmaceutical profession, and how they've made big changes, one of which was being more tolerant of irregular and part-time work. And so just by making like those changes of being more tolerant to let people work different hours, they saw their increase of a proportion of female workers go up from only 10% of pharmacists were female in 1970. And in 2010, 60% of pharmacists were female. And that was just shocking to me when I read it, that being able to make that change in an industry helped provide more space for women in general. And so I just kind of took that as inspiration and hope that, maybe 50 years from now, people can say at Empowering Women, people talked about these changes and look at this big change that we've seen in this one specific industry.
That's awesome, Bethany. I was going to say one of the coolest experiences I had recently was at the Offshore Technology Conference when we went to the Inclusion and Diversity Breakfast. Of course, the room was full of women, and there were maybe 5 gentlemen there. But the one that I sat next to and spoke with said, I'm here today because I really want to understand women's perspectives and try to determine what's happening at my own organization about why women are not in leadership roles within my organization. And I thought that was wonderful hearing from a gentleman who was genuinely concerned to understand a different person's point of view. And I think for me, that's what I'm most excited about at the conference is being able to attend the conference with an open mind, an open heart, and just think to myself, with every person I meet, what can I learn from them? And also, secondarily, is there any way I can help them? Is there anything I can do to benefit that person? So for me, going into this conference, I feel like just being open to learning is really essential because I don't know what I don't know. So it's really important for me to just be open to learning new things.
Listening to the first bonus episode of the Empowering Women podcast. We would love to have you join us at our upcoming conference in Chicago. Check out empoweringwomeninindustry.com to learn more. Thank you for adding that, Sienna. And I just want to step back momentarily to the pay gap comment and just take a moment to recognize here that, yes, there is a pay gap across the board for women in the United States. And also that gap is even bigger for women of color. And that's something that we've got to also be mindful of and be advocates for when we're opening up these conversations. So, Sienna, I really like what you said about the conference, and all of the planning has been really wonderful to be a part of and witness unfold. I think one of the things that I've appreciated most, and this is Mel speaking right now, one of the things I've appreciated most is the collaborative nature that everyone who's been involved has really embraced. And for me, I think that's also connected to what I get excited about with empowering women in industry is making the space to connect with other women and for us to come into it with this notion of wanting to help one another. I think that, like many of our podcast guests have said, and certainly Charlie said this when I interviewed her, we can do so much more. We can achieve so much more when we work together.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm going to love feeling when I'm at that conference is feeling that camaraderie and that collectedness. So I'm really looking forward to it. Plus, I'm looking forward to the Rosie Shuffle. So I don't know how many of you have been involved in flash mob dances, but I have. So
awesome. Well,
us all up for that for weeks.
Ladies, I just want to open up the next question. What in the Empowering Women in Industry Conference coming up September 26th are you most excited about?
For me, I'm looking forward to the sessions on overcoming limiting beliefs and mental toughness. I know that personally, it's something that I want to improve upon in my own life, both personally and professionally. But I also think that these are important topics that many women in male-dominated industries also face, and that can use this to their advantage and to continue growing and becoming stronger women.
well, and it's fascinating, Becca, that you're looking forward to that because I'll be moderating one of the panels on overcoming limiting beliefs. And Gabriella Espinoza and Stephanie Hajdasek, they are two awesome ladies who are going to be on that panel. And as we were preparing for that session, seeing the parallels that are happening in those two women's lives and the ability of them to come together and talk and then, learn how to support each other. It was a wonderful call, and I'm so excited about the breakout session because I think that it's going to focus on the two different types of limiting beliefs. Is one that is more internal, and then the other where there are external forces where people are telling you you can't. And so that's just going to be an awesome panel session. It's going to be an awesome panel session for the attendees in that breakout.
Personally, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is the gala where we are awarding these Empowering Women in Industry awards in 11 different categories. We had over 60 nominees, and we've been slowly trickling out promotions for each of the nominees on all our social media channels. And it's just inspiring, honestly, to see all these feedback and these people that are so excited to congratulate these women and say, oh, this honor is so deserved. She does all these things and never takes any recognition. And so being able to be in a room with all these really strong women that have really earned these nominations and all deserve an award, I think it's going to be really inspiring. And I'm really excited because my mom is going to come with me to the gala. And so, having my mom sit in a room with me on an event that I've worked on and I'm really excited about, I think is just going to be really rewarding to me. And my son's going to be there too. And to have him be able to come and see this event that all these strong women are there and working on is really important to me.
That's awesome that your mom is going to be there, Bethany. My twin sister is also going to be there. And so
Oh, wow.
I'm so happy she cut her hair super short. So mine is long. So people shouldn't have too hard of a time differentiating us. But she'll be there helping. She's so excited about the conference and has, given me advice whenever I needed it. And so I'm just really looking forward to having her there.
Can we call her backup Sienna? Is that we should know her name. Thing one and thing two.
Oh no, and I'm really excited about the Rosie Shuffle because I'm a big fan of flash mob dances. And so during the daytime, as part of the conference, at the end of the conference, Jackie Henderson will be teaching all the participants the Rosie Shuffle. And so at the awards gala that night, we'll all be able to come together on the floor and do this dance together. So I love to dance, and I'm just really excited about that too.
Okay, so I want to go into something a little more granular. There's been some research that has shown that there are things that women don't get on their professional journey that their male counterparts do. So that could come in the form of guidance or mentorship or sponsorship. And it's thought that some of these things that women are missing are the links or the missing links, as it were, that prevent them from getting to the higher ranks of management and leadership roles. So I would just be curious to hear if any of you have thoughts on how we can use conferences like Empowering Women in Industry and other events, or through the podcast or other things that we create. How can we help fill some of those gaps for women professionals?
This is Bethany. I think on a very basic level, people having the awareness that that is a fact, like what you were stating, will help address the problem. And so having this platform to be able to share that information with these women, where they come to this conference, they listen to your podcast, they see some content published on our site that says, women are missing training. They're missing these opportunities that are key opportunities to help them advance. They're going to go home with I hope they're going to go home with a renewed sense of purpose to go in and say, I need this training. I need this support. Please help me.
Well, and piggybacking off of what you said, Bethany, it's part of it is one, being aware that this is a real thing that exists, and two, being able to ask for that help or ask for that connectedness. And so I feel like, in my experience, just being part of Collab Suite and the Empowering Women in Industry LinkedIn group, that there have been women who have shared some issues that sort of remind you, oh, like, this is a thing I've experienced. It's having that forum is something that you relate to, and in this really spontaneous way. And then, I was able to learn from it. I think one of the pieces of advice at the time was to find an advocate or find, someone to help you. But knowing to ask is really important. And so I think when you have a resource like an online group or Empowering Women locally, that you have that to go to and say, okay, this is an issue. And whether it's cultural change at your organization or just your own skills, building your own skills to try to navigate what's happening in that organization, I think those are skills that we need to build. I mean, yes, it's unfair that those missing links exist. We would hope that the human resources departments within organizations would really make it a priority to grow every position, people in the positions within their company. But that's not always the case, and it does often have to start with us working, from the bottom up. So I think having those resources to be able to say, how did you navigate this, or how did you approach this, is really important. So once you're aware of it, learning how to ask for it is sort of the next step.
We've got to be the change, right, Sienna?
That's right. That's how you be the change. You have to know what to change and then figure out how to do it. And change is messy. Change is not easy, and it can take time, but it's worth the effort.
Change is messy.
It is. And this is Becca, just to add to, what Bethany and Sienna were saying. I'm a firm believer that we should always be growing, as individuals, partners, professionals, and to have access to those platforms and to those communities that can help you grow, help you with that knowledge, and more importantly, just be there to support you and lift you up is so important for us to be able to start with our own lives and make those changes and to continue to grow and be better at both our personal lives and our professional ones.
And I think also, when you come together at a conference, you realize that what people are experiencing regionally is so drastically different. because I'm based in Chicago, I'm in a more liberal area, and there are parts of the country that have different policies and mindsets and culture. There are so many different cultures within our own country that, women are experiencing different things all over the country. And so I think that when we come together, we might be able to support each other sort of in a way where it's like, been there, done that. If you've been there and done that, help someone who's going through that now. So I think it's really important to come together to relate and connect and help each other through those things.
So, ladies, we've all been working towards this, and the conference is coming up so quick, and I know we're excited about this event, and I see it as the first of many. I wonder if you might just speak with us a little bit about what your hopes and goals are for empowering women in industry in the coming years.
I'll speak up first. I want to, obviously, for empowering women in industry, I want us to continue to be a resource and a community for all women in industry, to be able to come together and better ourselves and each other. But more importantly, a lot of the women that I talk to, no matter how diverse we are, what differences in how we grew up or what areas we are in, a lot of us have the similar story in that we just kind of fell into this industry. And what I really want to see happen in the years to come with empowering women in industry is for young girls and women to actually choose to get into this industry, not that they just fell into it. This industry is wonderful, and everyone that I have met that have a career in this industry stay in it and they love it. But I want people to know that it's a real option for them from the start, not just they stumbled into it and realize they love it, but that it's an option at a younger age that they see this is a great career path that they can get into and actually choosing to be in it. And I think that in and of itself will also help with increasing that diversity and that gap.
Becca, you wrote a great blog about that, about how the gender diversity starts at birth. And just what you're saying just really reminded me of that and how I think it's important.
I think for me, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, did any of you see that commercial where they had a boy baby and a girl baby, but they dressed them up in opposite, stereotypical gendered clothes, and then had people play with them when there were a variety of toy options to see how different they would treat babies? Did anybody see that?
I haven't seen it, but it sounds fascinating.
Okay, so, I'll have to put a link to it now. Okay, so in every case, people would guide the baby that was dressed like a, quote, girl to girly type of toys, little baby dolls or whatever, and they would take the baby that was dressed like a boy to blocks or, a dinosaur or whatever it was that was around. And then they would tell them at the end, like, do you see what you just did there? And that's one great example of the unconscious difference in how we treat children literally from birth. We start conditioning them to see themselves as a certain way.
Yes, and I think that in some parts of the country, there's a higher awareness of that than there are in other parts of the country. And so I think that we're seeing cultural shift which is really cool. And I actually saw it at the beach this summer. When I was this summer, I saw more women in bikinis and I cheered out loud. I was like, yeah, look at all these awesome body shapes in their bikinis, because body positivity is part of a cultural change that's happening, which is similar to the, women in industry change that is happening, where we're starting to see the opportunity and the value that women bring to trades, position in trades and positions in engineering and positions in manufacturing. And so I'm seeing all around me shifts in the culture, even though there are still tendencies to condition children based on gender. I'm still seeing signs of change. One Chicago Tribune writer this summer wrote a great article where she noticed that her son was wearing a sports jersey of one of the female soccer players who won in the World Cup. And I just thought that is so cool that not only did she have that realization, but she decided to write an article and share it with the world. And I thought that was so cool.
That's awesome. I'd love to link to that too. You'll have to send me that.
I will share that.
Well, I think this also too, this is Becca, it really is, it's hard because a lot of these decisions and the things that we do are unconscious. So it's almost like we have to unlearn the things that we grew up with to be able to really understand that gender disparity that we subconsciously are influencing the younger generations into. It's not an easy thing. And one of the biggest things is education, is continuing to educate ourselves on our biases and the subconscious stereotypes that we, were grown up with, and, realizing that that's not how we want to raise our children and raise the next generations, and really trying to make an active effort to stray from that normal society trends.
And Becca, I think that those things happen when there's exposure. First of all, you have to be exposed to different ideas and thoughts and lifestyles and alternatives, and only with that exposure can you start to think for yourself, is this something that's going to work for me, or can I modify things to make my situation better? So it is exposure and awareness and a willingness to learn. And then I think having that ability or place where you can connect for that exposure and that growth. I think that's so critical to growth is exposure.
Back to your question, Mel, about what we hope for empowering women in the future. I've been sitting here trying to formulate my answer where it doesn't sound too much like I'm sitting on a therapist couch, but then decided that, that's fine, right? We're all here to...
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. You're my free therapist today. Thank you. I hope for a day where I don't feel like I need to defend why we need a women's conference, or where I don't have someone ask me like, well, why do women need to be empowered? And I think Charlie talked about this a little bit when you interviewed her. And, it might too, I'm from Texas and we're a little bit more traditional, and I guess traditional would be the wrong word, conservative down here. Most people are. And so a lot of times when I go in and I'm talking to people about what I'm doing, I feel like I'm a little guarded, which is ridiculous. Like, I shouldn't have to feel like that. And I shouldn't put those, imposing beliefs or limiting beliefs, like Sienna was talking about, on myself. So, in this perfect world where I'm just sitting on my therapist couch and I'm talking through this, that's one of the big things that I really want for empowering women in the future, where we have this whole generation of women in the workforce that, are proud and strong and don't feel like we need to defend ourselves for wanting to have a conference, and can just really speak intelligently about what our roles in the industry look like.
So I have a question for everyone, actually, because I've heard of, the glass ceiling. I think everyone has heard of the glass ceiling, but have you heard of this concept around the glass cliff, where women are only promoted to the top in leadership roles only within organizations that are failing. Has anyone heard of this before?
Yes. There was a really excellent podcast episode on the Freakonomics podcast about this concept.
I love that podcast.
So
Yes, that's actually where, I bring it up because I listened to that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I definitely think that is a fascinating observation. I mean, so there's so many layers, right? There's so many things going on at once. There was that, first of all, there's the obvious thing. Like a few years ago, there was that look at the Fortune 500 companies where there were more CEOs named John than there were women CEOs on that list. Seriously. So that's like the numbers thing. But then there's this concept that Sienna's bringing up here, where what happened was, and I'm paraphrasing, so we'll link to that podcast episode so you can listen to it too. So paraphrasing, they did some research and someone made this conclusion that women made bad CEOs because they were often in charge of something when it failed. And then when they took a deeper look, when somebody was like, hey, that doesn't seem quite right, and took a deeper look, what they were finding was that women were often not being promoted to this most senior level of roles until the company was already failing. So basically, the women were not only being set up to fail, but there was this kind of perhaps stereotype being cast on them of, come in and save the day kind of thing. Otherwise, just be quiet and stay off to the side. And then when the shit has really hit the fan, then come in and try to help bail us out. So, yeah, I'd love
Talk about a mommy complex.
Yeah.
That was an excellent summary, Mel.
Well, I think the mommy complex was the really good summary. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that really ties into my goal for empowering women in industry is I want to see us all coming together. And I'm talking like every women's group across the country get together and really affect change so that we don't have to talk about the glass cliff. Like, let's make that a thing of the past. So my goal for empowering women in industry is to get past not just the glass ceiling. I mean, the glass ceiling was shattered already by our predecessors. What I want to get to is I want to see in my lifetime women in leadership roles for successful companies and not just being given the opportunity when companies are failing, which was, what we were just talking about with that other podcast for the Freakonomics podcast. So I want to completely get rid of that glass cliff. I don't want to see it in existence by the time I retire, if I ever retire.
Well, and I'd just like to bring that back around to a concept that we were discussing earlier of this is connected to so many things. It's connected to this notion that we need to defend ourselves for having and creating these spaces to begin with. And I think that's tied to these stereotypes that women deal with in the workplace too. So these ideas around women having an issue getting into leadership without portraying themselves as masculine. I feel like it's really cloudy, and Sienna, you can probably help me say this a little better. I feel like this gets a little cloudy because we want all women, whoever you are, however your true self is, to be able to bring your true self and your fullest and best self to your career and to your ambition, right? So we all have some feminine and some masculine traits, but I think the issues start to arise when people are unaware of how their expectations of a woman impact the way they see them as a leader or will allow them to progress as a leader. Does that make sense?
Mel, I think you articulated that beautifully.
Yeah, and it just put like a head on it. I mean, I think what you're trying to say also a little bit is, for an example, it's why women are called bossy and men are called confidently in charge, And we want women to feel confidently in charge no matter how their in chargeness manifests itself.
Right. And I think part of what we're trying to do is help raise some awareness for the masses, so men and women, that we need to clear the lens on how we're looking at those women around us, right? We raising awareness around some of those unconscious things that we all think, because we've potentially been conditioned that way since birth to see men and women as fundamentally different in their leadership capabilities.
And to Mel, this is Becca. I think we need to also, just as a society, look at gender differently in terms of masculine and feminine. It's not like a 50-50. Everyone has different percentages of masculine and feminine. And I think that typically in male-dominated industries, it's kind of a double-edged sword for women, because we're expected to have those masculine qualities, but we can't have too much. Otherwise, we get labeled, like Bethany said, bossy, or, being feminist, or, these negative connotation words that get put on us for trying to be a certain way so that we can succeed in those leadership roles and work our way up the ladder. But to be honest, I think we need to just, all of us, both men and women, kind of get over that feminine versus masculine, and we need to just really accept the percentages that we all have and embrace them, and not try to hide if we're happen to be a very feminine being, or if we happen to be very masculine. Personally, I have more masculine qualities than feminine. I always have. You're looking at a girl who wanted to be the first Ninja Turtle.
I'm here for that.
When I was a child.
Pictures. I need pictures, or it didn't happen.
No pictures. But we've kind of made it hard to find that balance within themselves and be who they are, because of that feminine versus masculine that we see in society, and especially being in leadership positions. And I think we need to just think a little differently on those aspects, and not judge people for having different percentages of those qualities.
Absolutely. There's got to be space for the entire spectrum, no matter what that looks like, and no matter what body parts you were born with. Ladies, I think this has been a really great conversation. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the conference and all of the learning that we're going to do together. Does anybody else have any final thoughts that you want to share, final messages that you want to send to our listeners?
I would love to share the Rosie Shuffle with everyone. And if you would like to do it and take a video and post it to Instagram and tag us, I think that would be so awesome if you could join us in our Rosie Shuffle all together.
If you haven't been able to tell, yes, Sienna loves the Rosie Shuffle.
I just love to dance, y'all.
But I think, obviously, yes, please tag us and share us and everything. The Rosie Shuffle, just in your interest in, the social messaging that we're putting out there. But we're also, just as a team, we're really excited for everyone to be involved and to come share this experience with us. So please check us out if you haven't already, and make it a priority to come and learn with us and grow with us.
Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. And I want to especially say thank you to each of you for all of the work that you've been doing over the past, maybe year or longer, getting this conference organized, lining up the speakers and the content. It's a really powerful day that you've organized, in both in topics and the speakers, and I just can't wait. So for all of you ladies out there listening, I hope you will consider joining us. We would love to have you be a part of our group. And we are just looking so forward to collaborating with you and learning about how we can support one another better. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for joining us for an episode of the Empowering Women Podcast with Mel the Engineer. If you find the Empowering Women Podcast helpful, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts. Our show is a partnership between Mel the Engineer and the Empowering Women in Industry organization. Learn more by visiting empoweringwomenpodcast.com.